Marc's record there. He is a very prominent player, and he is using that Night March archetype. As we said, it isn't one that loves coming up against Seismitoad. It is an item-reliant archetype, usually requiring things like Battle Compressor and Ultra Ball in order to get these Night Marchers into the discard pile to do enough damage, whereas Fabien, he is going to be using Seismitoad EX, and he basically shuts off all items. Everything Marc wants to do, Fabien basically just says, no, you can't do that.
Yep. And the really big thing here in this matchup is going to be Karen. Like, the big combo that the Seismitoad EX deck can do is, because Night March, it always has at least one turn to play all of its items. So normally what you do in the past is, you go, oh, okay, I can just play all my Battle Compressors and everything turn one, get everything in a discard pile, and then after that, I'm good to go, because they can Quaking Punch me, but my Night Marchers are doing enough where I can just win the game anyway. But with Karen coming into the equation, all of a sudden, not only are your Night March Pokemon back in your deck, but you can't rediscard them because all your items are gone, and the ones that are remaining are shut off.
Indeed.
So that's going to be the really big thing for Fabien. If he's able to do that combo, he will probably win. If not, then I think Marc actually can maybe stand a decent chance.
And you can now see some of the accomplishments from Fabien. He is a French national champion, as well as picking up some nice top 4s and other top 16 placements along the way, even in recent tournaments. So he is no slouch himself. Both players are ready for action here. And as you said, the item lock is going to be a big factor here. You can see that Marc is going to be able to get to go first, so hopefully he can have an explosive start. We've seen this archetype is very quick and typically has a lot of draw cards that can get through the deck, maybe like 50% plus of the deck a lot of the time. You can see Marc already resigning himself. He's not making any secret of the fact that he is not happy about this matchup. And it's an interesting one because we really didn't see much of Seismitoad in the Fort Wayne tournaments, and it's brilliant to see that Fabien's still backing up this deck and showing why it is so powerful.
Yeah, and you were mentioning earlier, Joe, about Marc's facial expressions being one of the favourites on stream, and he's even literally tried to force the corners of his lips to go upwards to try and force a smile. Probably someone telling him to try and cheer up a little bit, but I mean, if you're in his shoes, you can't really blame him, to be honest. But he will be going first, at least for this game, so there is something. Starting off with Tapu Lele.
Yep, starting off with Tapu Lele, he's going to be able to look through his deck. He does have 2 Night Marchers prized, nothing too painful for him otherwise though. So going for the Wonder Tag straight off the bat, looking for which support he wants to go for. Most likely going to be a Professor Sycamore or an N. If not, he could go for the Getsis, and that's actually what he's going to go for here, trying to really ruin Fabien from the start. I think Marc realises that he can't win this matchup in a conventional manner. He needs to really steal the game from Fabien, and we do see that he does go for 3 targets there. And Fabien does still have a supporter in his hand at the very least. Yeah,
so I think Marc, like you said, Joe, realising that if I just play my usual game plan, I am more than likely not going to lose. So I need to take a gamble here. I need to go for the Getsus really early on. Maybe I just blow him out the game completely by just him not being able to set up at all. But yeah, unfortunately for Fabien, he has a supporter. But we should mention that supporter is a Colress. So not exactly the best draw supporter when Marc is probably seeing that. Is going to try and avoid benching as many Pokemon as he can. So really stop that Colress from being maximum effective.
Yeah, there is still a Juniper in his hand, but we do have to stress that there are 2 double colourless energies prized for Fabien. So even with the Juniper, it's not hugely likely that he could get a Floatstone as well as a double colourless for a Seismitoad EX. I love what Marc's going for here. He's using his first Ultra Ball of the game, finding himself a Tauros GX. This in combination with Marshadow is a way of beating the Seismitoad-based variants, because Tauros really is an awkward target to deal with for Seismitoad decks.
Yeah, as we mentioned before, Seismitoad's damage cap is normally very low. You're doing maybe 30, maybe 60 every single turn. It can build up a little bit with the Hypnotic Laser, but if you're not one-shotting Tauros, Tauros is going to hit you back even harder, of course, with the Rage Attack doing 20, plus 10 more for each damage counter on it, and the GX version, Mad Bull GX, doing 30 times the number of damage counters on it, so being able to hit, for one-hit KO numbers, very, very quickly, even if it hasn't taken a lot of damage.
So we are going to see Fabien. He does go for the Wonder Tag, finding himself Karen, realising that, you know what, I need this to be accessible via Versus Seeker as often as possible. He has found himself a Seismitoad and a double colourless energy. Let's see if he can find his way into a switching card. Looks like he's eyeing up an Ultra Ball. Maybe he's going to rely on some more draw here from other Pokemon in his deck.
Yeah, he will be able to find himself a Shaman more than likely. He's going to be able to. He's going to have a decent chance at hitting a Floatstone because, of course, he can just bench the Seismitoad, put the DC already on it, so he can draw more with that Shaman. And he's just having a look through now to see how many of his Floatstones are prized. Of course, we can see that there's none, but he doesn't know that yet. But now, of course, he inevitably will. So he's going to think to himself, "Yep, I want to try and dig for this. I've got a decent chance of hitting this, and if I can do an early Quaking Punch, I can actually just KO a Joltik already."
So we are going to see, here comes a Rescue Stretcher. He's going to be able to find himself a Seismitoad that he's just discarded with the Ultra Ball. and then he can bench that, put the double colourless energy onto it, and he's going to get a 4-card draw here from the Shaymin EX. Can he find himself one of his 3 float stones? Looks like he found himself the A-Spec. That's good enough for him.
Yep, there you go. Computer Search will be able to discard any 2 cards from his hand, and he then will be able to find this float stone, retreat into the Toad, and Quaking Punch, taking a very early commanding lead in an already favourable matchup.
Indeed, so he goes, gets himself the float stone with the Computer Search, so he's going to initiate his lock, which is exactly what he wants to do as early as possible. Marc, not too sad about this. It's just a single prize, and he does already have the Taurus developed, so I think he'll sort of take this. He assumes that Fabien most likely will always get the turn 2 Quaking Punch, so now it's down to Taurus and how much work he can put in to this Seismitoad EX.
Yeah, this is where Fabien has to be a little bit careful. As you already mentioned, Taurus is very effective against Toad because it can just do decent damage while at the same time sort of putting your opponent on like a little bit of an edge, because you're thinking, oh, you know, if I attack, I do more, then I'm going to potentially get one shot back very easily. And Fabien needs to be careful with how far he wants to take this. So even if he were to, you know, just do another Quaking Punch now, and he looks like he's going to rely on laser.
Ooh, this is big. He's able to hit heads on his first Hypnotoxic laser to not only poison but also send the Tauros GX to sleep. Obviously much less of a threat if it does remain asleep, so he's going to more than likely still have to keep using Quaking Punch. This is exactly what he needs to do every single turn. We are going to see he's going to go for the Gets This. There are 2 cards in there that are going to get shuffled in, and Fabien is able to draw 2 for himself. And looks like he finds himself another Seismitoad EX, also a Psychic Energy that he's going to commit to that. Not the 2 worst cards in the world, not too annoying for Marc, but we are still going to see the Quaking Punch here. And let's see if this big flip is going to be heads. It is, so Marc does wake up, so he now has the option to use a Mad Bull GX, which is going to do 150 damage currently. And in combination with the 60, it's not actually enough to get the KO, so potentially just a Rage here to do 70 damage is going to be what he looks for.
Yeah, potentially. And then with the... Wait, hold on. No, but Mad Bull GX would get the KO, wouldn't it?
With the Fighting Fury belt,
to be short,
he'd be 210 damage.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Yeah. So actually, with that, it's interesting as well that did Fabien draw that Xerosic off of the Getsis? Because if he didn't, then it could consider maybe playing the Xerosic instead, discarding the double colorless energy and making it less likely that Marc has the double colorless.
It was off the Getsis, I'm pretty certain. So we are just going to see the G. Oh, okay. So there is a GX attack for a knockout there. We need to check the numbers on this. So 3 times 5, 150 plus the 60 damage from the Seismitoad. That's 210, right?
Yeah.
We need to check the judges on this to make sure it's actually fine. We need to check the numbers, because there was definitely a Fighting Fury belt on the Seismitoad EX. So we need to make sure that the Mad Bull's doing enough for the knockout here.
Yeah, maybe unless we're just missing something really silly. Like, I don't think so.
I thought we were doing okay. Both players seem to be content with this, though. I'm not certain on these numbers, but the game is continuing at a rapid pace. We're going to see a Verbank City Gym come into play. We're going to see a retreat into the Garbadox and Garbodor and just a pass onto the Trubbish, but this is a huge deal. We need to make sure the numbers are correct here from the judge, and we're seeing the game finally stops now. There was 6 damage counters on the Tauros. There was 5 damage counters on the Tauros at the time. Tauros then having 150 damage with the Mad Bull GX attack. There was already 60 damage prior damage on the Seismitoad EX, so it should be just 210 with the GX attack. So not a knockout, so the game is completely stopped here. I'm glad that we've caught it in time, but there has been a lot of gameplay that has happened here.
Yeah, so it's going to be awkward to see what's happening. I guess it looks like the judges are going to have to sort of get up and the judge raised his hand, so...
A lot of gameplay has happened, so this is definitely going to be one that will take a while to resolve. We said the numbers weren't perfect for the Seismitoad because of the Fighting Fury belt there, and making life very difficult for Marc. So you can see him now, he's just adding up the numbers. The 6 goes to 210 because the Fighting Fury belt just hangs on. So we're going to see how we can resolve this. Hopefully the game can still continue and we can reverse some of this. But a full turn has essentially been played, so I'm not too certain about this. Yeah. It's a bit of a blushing moment for Marc.
Yeah. It's also not the first time in recent memory that Marc has done a bit of a Nicky Nodo on stream. We remember we forgot to, on Bremen, he forgot to retreat between 2 Gallipods to do first impression, so to do the extra damage, although at least that didn't cause a potentially irreversible game state. Yeah, how does this get resolved at this point?
I'm not too certain. This is definitely a case for the judges. Just talking about the matchup, we saw Fabien, he's pretty much developed everything on his side of the board, and if the Seismitoad was able to tank this hit as well, it's even more dominant of a board position for him. All he really has available to him is Tauros, and then following up with a Marshadow to then copy Taurus's attack later on in the game. That's not even an option when there's already a Garbotoxin on the board. So Marc's already in a pretty disadvantageous spot despite being ahead in the prized race. The board state is very different right now. So hopefully, well, he might not even be ahead in the prize race if that prize doesn't stand, which it probably shouldn't. So we'll hopefully get a resolution here if possible. If not, it could be an early game 2 here. Yeah,
and it's a bit of a sad way for things to develop, especially, it's already an unfavourable matchup, and as if, Marc needs this on top of everything else to deal with. It's just really not what he wants to see at this point when he's fighting for that spot in the finals against what it should already be extremely difficult.
So we are going to see, well, it looks like we're taking things back, folks. The game might be continuing at the very least.
So
the Psychic Energy was attached the turn previously, wasn't it? I believe that was already attached.
There was, yes, I believe it was, because there was, oh no, he might have attached it and then, I'm actually not sure. So much has happened. It's like you said,
and it was also quick as well. There was a replacement of Stadium. There was a discard for a Shaman draw. All sorts of things has happened with this hand. And it all interacts so differently because there's a Seismic Toad EX that would have been active still. There was much less that he had to dig for. At the time, Fabien was looking for energy to continue with a Quaking Punch Lock. Then he missed the energy. Then had to retreat into a Trubbish. So much has happened in the space of that 5-second period of us figuring out the damage. So I really hope this is something that can be fixed. But it does look like it's a lot to try and reverse right now.
Yeah, and that is what they're trying to do, just make it absolutely clear. So what the judges would like to do in any given situation, this is actually kind of good to explain a little bit about tournament procedure. If it is possible to reverse the game state, then they absolutely will do everything they can in their power to get the game state to back how it was before the error happened, and then sort of carry on the game from there. Obviously, the problem is when you get back past a certain point, it becomes what's called an irreversible game state, and that is when it would be a game loss at that point. But it seems like the judges are confident enough that although a lot has happened, it's happened in a way where you can still rewind the game to a game state where the stuff hasn't happened, and it actually may be maybe a lesser penalty because of that.
And this is a big deal. This is really big. Trying to get the game in the full on stream is something that we obviously want to promote. We want to see games conclude as they should. So we are seeing the reversal, the Seismitoad down to 210 HP 10 HP remaining, 210 damage on it, and wow, this is incredible to see that they've managed to reverse this.
Yeah, the Stadium should be reversed as well, of course. There should only be 60 damage on.
Should be 5 at the time. There's 6 going back into Fabien's turn. Yes.
Yeah. And then is this everything now? It looks like they're pretty close to getting back to the game to how it was before at this point. It will be interesting to see what the resolution is. I
was pretty certain that there was a second Seismitoad already on his board and not a Trubbish. That's the only thing that is concerning me.
Yeah, there was.
I'm pretty certain there was a Psychic Energy Seismitoad already on the board.
There was actually. We should probably just let the judges know about that as well.
Yeah, we have to make sure this is the case. Nick's going to be on it. We're hopefully trying to resolve everything. There was a lot that happened. I think we're just trying to figure out that there was everything correct. We're looking at hand sizes and all sorts here. We're looking at the Professor Juniper as well that Fabien chose to versus Seeker to use because he was looking for extra Seismitoad EX pieces. He was looking for the double colourless energy to find other things. The Trubbish was in the hand and the Seismitoad was in play at the time. I'm pretty certain that this was the case.
Oh, it looks like they're disagreeing with us.
Oh, potentially not then. Potentially that was just part of the thing Fabien was looking for, but oh man, I'm not sure about this. Yeah. Hopefully we're going to get there.
Yeah, this is just one of those things that just happens at sort of high level place on this. They got the Stadium right at least, so the Stadium's been unreplaced. And you can see there's our resident judge just working through to sort of make sure that everything gets resolved properly. We really should give judges more thanks for the work they do. They work really tirelessly to make sure that tournaments progress smoothly and to try and resolve situations like these in the way that's most fair to both players. And I really want to give a huge shout out to everyone who goes to judge at tournaments. Your work it's a very thankless job. It's just very much underappreciated.
Yeah, not all heroes wear capes, but some of them do wear lab coats, it is turning out. So it looks like we've had the conclusion of this now. So it goes back into Fabien's turn. There is now 210 damage on it, and 6 counters now on the Tauros because the turn clock has turned back over to Fabien, and Fabien is going to be able to carry on with his turn now, and Marc has to take back his prize. Looks like he has one prize taken at the moment. Looks like it was a prize penalty. I don't even know why he's taken one prize at this point.
He might have been awarded a prize penalty for the missing the game state.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So Marc has taken one prize due to not following the game state. Fabien can continue his turn, attaching a Psychic now to a Garbodor, and simply announcing Quaking Punch once again, adding up with some of that Burbank City Gym laser damage.
Right, so, yeah. It's interesting to note that Marc was actually given a prize, even though he was the one who kind of made the error. So I guess the error was kind of on Fabien's side for not recognizing that he hadn't been KO'd, which is interesting.
It's one that it's a difficult one to follow. As I'm not a judge myself, I just have to respect their decision here. We are going to see Marc get to continue his turn with one less prize available. We see a Joltik come down, a Hex Maniac does get played, and we are now going to see a Rage, which is enough for the knockout here, and Poison adds up once again. Yeah,
and so now let's go on the bench, and then down goes the Versus Seeker, and I imagine he'll probably just grab himself oh, he looks like going to go for the Colress here. Of course, the benches are quite full, so Fabien will be able to draw a decent amount off of this, able to get 8s, and should hopefully for him see a double colours off of this, which would then be able to finish off that Tauros.
Yeah, it's a big 8 cards. Hopefully he is able to find a double colourless. We do have to stress that he still has 2 prized, so he would be fortunate to get 1 here. And this might be a big break for Marc if Fabien's not able to find this.
Yeah, and it looks like
it's not there.
And his bench is full as well, so he can't even dig with a Shaman.
No.
Although, actually, no, it doesn't matter. The Tauros is still going to get KO'd with Burbank Poison, so that's something at least.
It's more about releasing the item lock, which is the bigger problem. So you can see Fabien has to promote a Trubbish, something as a sacrificial lamb more than anything else, and allow the poison to take effect and knock out this Tauros. But as we said, not able to keep this item lock up, which is a big break for Marc here.
Yeah, it is, definitely. So now Marc's going to be afforded a really great opportunity to just play a bunch of items in one turn, dig through his deck, find a double colours for a Joltik, and maybe even like a Lysander or a Guzma to KO an EX on the bench. And at that point, Marc actually might just be in a position to take this game from here. Then at that point, Fabien would need to find his Karen and Quaking Punch.
This is going to be a really big turn. I'm pretty sure that Marc doesn't have many Night Marchers in his discard right now, so he's really going to have to capitalize on this as much as possible. Maybe even find himself a Field Blower to allow himself abilities back and have a pretty big turn. So let's see what he can do with his single turn of items back for him. He's going to start off with a Battle Compressor, getting rid of a couple of Lampant. Always good to get those into the discard pile first, because they obviously serve no other purpose other than adding up damage. So he's going to, for all 3 of those, he has another Battle Compressor as well, and he even has Computer Search in his hand, so he has been sat on a lot of items.
This is going to be an absolutely nuts turn for Marc, consuming everything that goes to plan, which it should do. Even opting to discard the Marsh Shadow, realizing that, putting a EX vulnerable on the active to just take Quaking Punches over again is probably going to be a bad idea. And with that, now 2 more Pumpkaboos as well going to the discard, so the Night Marchers are going into the discard pile thick and fast.
Let's see, Marc's going to do a quick count of how many are in there. He's trying to ramp up as many as possible so he can maybe take the 1 prize on the active Trubbish this turn, and then all he needs to do is find himself a Guzma to finish off a Shaman or a Tapu Lele to finish off his last couple of prizes because of the big break he got there because of that ruling decision. So this is going to be a big turn. As we've said, he's going to get even more Night Marchers into his discard pile, set up his hand as best as possible. He does have the teammates in hand, but because the Tauros was knocked out by poison damage and not an attack, that's not a usable supporter card right now. So he's going to have to maybe use the Computer Search to find a different supporter if he doesn't already have a Versus Seeker in his hand.
Yeah, and it looks like he's actually eyeing up a Field Blower, so deciding that he really wants to be able to make use of his abilities for his turn, because of course he has an Ultra Ball,
yeah,
so,
so
if he Field Blowers off of the Fury Belt and he gets rid of the Burbank City Gym as well, then going for the teammates.
He can't use the teammates.
Yeah. So
we have to make sure that it was poison damage that knocked out the Tauros, and teammates does say by damage from an attack. So we can't use teammates because it was poison on the Tauros.
Yeah, and it's between turns, so
There we go. That's a quicker resolution. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, so he does still have an Ultra Ball, but he Field Blowed away the Stadium and not the tool on the Garbotoxin Garbodor. So he's just forced to pass after that.
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Yeah, so with that, so you see Marc, he's cringing. He knew that he messed that one up, because if he'd Field Blowered the Garbotoxin Garbodor instead, at least he can Ultra Ball, grab a Shaman or a Lele, carry on. But no, instead now Fabien's back in the driver's seat. He can just Quaking Punch this Joltik, and the opportunity that Marc had to get back into this game.
There we go. He can teammates now.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. Okay, let's see how many Night Marchers are in Marc's discard pile. It's now 180 HP Seismitoad EX. That's much more reliable at getting a knockout. He's much more likely to be able to get this, so maybe he's still in the game. Fabien still has 2 prizes remaining. There are a lot of item cards in Marc's discard pile, so I don't currently see a Guzma in Fabien's hand, so potentially this Joltik could still get response KO'd by a Garbodor and still be fine. Oh, there is a Guzma in the hand?
It's the last card in his hand.
Oh, man. Okay, so it looks like this is going to be wrapped up. Fabien's going to count how many item cards are in the discard pile. That's the only thing stopping a Guzma being the end of the game on the Garbodor. Marc going to play out his turn still, of course. There's going to be teammates. He's going to grab himself double Colorless Energy and maybe something else in his hand, maybe like Versus Seeker or Guzma for the following turn, hoping that he can not get Guzma himself next turn. So let's see how he can do this. He is most likely going to have enough damage for the Night March at this point. We saw he went crazy with his Battle Compressors, so I believe it's 10 Night Marches, so we'll be able to see...
it's actually not as many items as I would have thought. That's one more, though.
He can't use this card either because he's just been Quaking Punch.
Marc, what are you doing, mate?
Wow, this has been a calamitous game. This is one to keep judges on their toes. Wow, this has been interesting, keeping us on our toes. Marc just laughing. So this is indeed the player who has the most championship points in the world right now. Marc Lutz, everybody. Marc Lutz.
What do you even say at this point?
So we are going to see an Ultra Ball from Fabien getting back to task here. We are going to see him grab himself a Turtonator GX. We can just hear his own voice just coming through on our own headphones, so he can't look himself in the face anymore.
And, you know, in Marc's defense, I think that now he's just done so many things in a row that he just keeps forgetting. This is the tilt factor that we sometimes see. You know, you do one and one leads to another, and then there's stuff like this happens.
Humans aren't robots, and when these sorts of things happen, you do sort of get out of your own mindset. Sometimes it can be distracting, and then one thing leads to another, and we are seeing the outcome of that. So we are going to see another Ultra Ball from Fabien. He's trying to thin as many cards as possible, and he's going to grab himself another Garbotoxin Garbodor. Interesting that he plays one of each copy. I wonder if he's ever used either attack, but having the option for both is an actually interesting choice from him.
I think I remember him saying in an interview I did with him yesterday that it was just because he didn't own enough of each one, so he just played a mix of both.
Well, sure, that works too, I guess. So there was a Guzma in his hand, but we see he probably didn't have enough. Marc probably didn't have enough item cards. We're going to see a Versus Seeker here, and Marc can get himself teammates. Teammates is going to grab him a couple of things here. He's going to get double Colorless Energy. But I don't think he has much else here. Can he get floats? No, he can't get anything to take his final prize. So
Fabien takes a tumultuous game one.
I mean, that was a struggle to commentate just because we didn't know what was happening for a large portion with the judging thing, and then as we saw, both players were a little bit put off by these decisions. But anyway, we can hopefully put that game behind them and carry on into a game 2 here, because that was pretty much very chaotic. However, we do need to stay on task here. Yes, Marc is going to go for a Taurus approach again, most likely. This is an approach that almost worked in game 1. You saw he was 10 damage shy of taking a knockout on a Seismitoad and really starting to ramp up the prize race. So that's something he has to try and work on again. For Fabien, it's all about how he can get that Quaking Punch. Last time he was able to win even with 2 double Colorless Energy prized. So I think he's still in a super favourable spot here. With 38 minutes on the clock, however, there's still time for 2 games if Marc is able to pull one out here.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can hear that there, Marc. He only just noticed afterwards sort of what exactly happened, and is again saying I can't look you in the eye. I'm so sorry.
It's fine. Okay, everyone has those sorts of head slap moments, and Marc's going to look back at it. Well, I doubt he will look back at this, but someone will, and we'll let him know about what's happened here. So we are going to see. Marc does get to start once again, getting the choice because he was the loser in game 1. But of course, this is the best of 3 series, so he is going to have another crack at it, and hopefully this time we're going to see him have a better start here and maybe try and develop that Taurus again. And let's see what they're going to do in this second game here.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like Marc is agonizing over what to start with necessarily. There he is. He's making a decision now, and out go the prizes. We will just show these for you now. So on Fabien's side, it looks like we've got a couple of Psychic Energy, Colress, Floatstone, Versus Ultra Ball. Not too bad, really. And on Marc's side, a little bit uglier. Got a couple of Marches, Computer Search, and a Shaman, and a Lysander as well is quite big. But otherwise, again, not the end of the world.
Yeah, all 3 of these not too fantastic. Looks like Marc had a Tauros and passed. I can only imagine he would have loved to have gone first. So I'm assuming that there's going to be the Ultra Ball from Fabien here, and he's going to find himself Trubbish. He's also going to go ahead and grab Tapu Lele, and he's going to put it into his hand, and we are then going to see him use the Tapu Lele to find himself any supporter that he likes with the Wonder Tag ability. He's going to go ahead and go for a turn 1 Getsis. Marc trying to stay stern-faced, but this could be a painful start here. We're also going to see a Rescue Stretcher going to put back the Turtonator into his deck. That's mainly because I believe there's a Shaman EX in his hand, so he could be drawing 1 extra card from the setup before using a Getsis here. So we're going to see 3 cards. There's going to be a Seismitoad. That's a really big pickup. And we're going to see the Getsis here. How many item cards are on display for Marc? There's going to be 4 item cards, and that's a lot of draws there.
But hold on, that must mean that Fabien went first.
Potentially Marc won game 1. We need to get confirmation of this from the judges table, because maybe the teammates was displaying game on Marc's side last game. This could be a really big deal.
Yeah, this is if Marc actually won that game after all of that, then that's going to
that would be crazy.
Yeah.
Well, okay. We're going to have to continue with this game and just see who wins regardless. We'll try and get confirmation from our desk at the back, but we do see Marc. He's been Get Assist 4 cards out of his hand. We're going to see the double colourless energy get attached and simply a Horn Attack for 60. We do see now Fabien finds himself a Floatstone, a Zerosic, also a double colourless energy, which is top deck. That's really big, allowing him to use the Zerosic very effectively, and he's going to be able to do a Quaking Punch for 40 damage here.
Yeah, maybe the other potential thing is maybe Marc did decide to go second so he can just get a turn 1 attack. That's the only other thing I could think of, but yeah, we just want to double check this to make sure that we know 100% what's going on.
So we have confirmation that Marc did actually choose to go second.
Right, okay.
So he simply has to pass here. The Zerosic being very effective, a huge top deck from Fabien last turn with a double colourless energy. We now see the computer search from him. He's going to discard that Turtonator for the second time this game, and also discard an N in the process as well, and continue to establish this lock. He does have to prepare himself for a Mad Bull GX in the upcoming turn, so he's going to go ahead, put the Stadium into play, use a Professor Juniper, hoping to find Seismitoad EX, which is exactly what he does. Also puts a Psychic Energy.
And a laser as well, that's absolutely huge.
This is a big turn.
Does get heads.
Wow, heads as well. This is ideal for Fabien. His deck is firing on all cylinders, whilst at the same time denying Marc many options because of this item lock. He fortunately does wake up. Let's see if he can get himself a supporter card or anything. No, just a pass from him. Fabien now going to find himself a Fighting Fury Belt and Quaking Punch for the first 2 prizes of the game. Marc does have a Marshadow, which can copy Tauros' attack currently while there's still abilities online, but Fabien's going to start dealing with that very quickly by using this Ultra Ball, grabbing himself more than likely the ability locking Garbodor with Garbotoxin, and continue this Quaking Punch lock. It looks like Seismitoad is just doing Seismitoad things right now.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you just go first, get to your opponent, and then follow every turn after that with Quaking Punch, then really there's not really much that you can do against that, especially if you're playing a deck which just heavily rely on items to do all of its stuff.
Yeah, and Marc just didn't cash in on his items on the first turn because of that Getsis, and it's a really bizarre decision to go second when your opponent is playing cards like Getsis and they can evolve into Garbodor 1 turn earlier. We see another heads on the Hypnotoxic Laser as well, more than anything else because of the ability lock being developed. He's doing this just to get more damage on the board with the Hypnotoxic Laser, so Marc does wake up. Let's see what else he can do with his hand, anything.
He hasn't passed straight away, so okay, he's got a Guzma. Okay. So that's something. Using
the Guzma to hopefully stall out the Quaking Punch for a turn to maybe stabilize in this game. Also replaces the Stadium to take less damage from Laser in between turns. We do see an Acerola. He's going to pick up his Garbodor to activate the Floatstone. This is really cute play from Fabien.
We also have just been informed again, apparently, there's a correction that apparently Marc did win game 1.
Wow, okay, so we have correction again that Marc won the first game. This is crazy. Okay, so this is going to be a scoop on game 2 though, because now we are finally going to a third game. This has been crazy to commentate, but we're getting there now, and maybe in the third game we could have a full series where nothing crazy happens.
I just don't even know what to say anymore, Joe. In literally all my time commentating the Pokemon matches, and granted it hasn't been that long, it's only been like 2 years at this point, or 1.5 years even, but I have never seen anything like this.
This is bizarre. So now we are 1 game apiece. We have to stress this. It looks like the backstage team weren't quite on it at that point, but we are there. now here in the third game, Fabien displayed how he can also win the game simply by announcing Quaking Punch over and over again is oftentimes enough to win the game, even when Marc is opting to play the Tech Tauros GX. Simply isn't enough a lot of the time if you don't have follow-up items to help out. So we really do need to stress that this is still very much in Fabien's favour, so it is going to be down to the wire in this third game.
Absolutely, and like you said, Joe, really, hopefully game 3 is no controversy, no Marc head slaps, none of that. Let's just have a nice clean game 3 to decide who's going to advance to the finals. And
we do still have over half an hour on the clock, so we will hopefully be able to have a full game conclude here, of course, without any extra time sort of rules. Hopefully it can just be a clean 6-prize game for both players here. Let's see how Marc is able to start, obviously losing the second game this time.
Yeah.
He will opt to go first. We see 2 Trubbishes prized for Fabien. Kind of a little bit awkward. Oh, but Marc, he's only gone and prized his Tauros GX and the Marshadow.
What?
This is so sad for Marc. These are the 2 cards he basically plays in his deck for this matchup. The Marshadow, of course, more versatile due to its typing and can work in a whole heap of matchups, but the Tauros is literally in here for Seismitoad decks.
I just want to stop everything now. Let's just have a look here. He's going to look through his deck now. I just want to wait for the facial reaction, because I know it's got to come, surely.
This is why we have Facecam, everybody. For this moment, it's game 3. They're in top 4, and it is the first search of the game. Marc's 1 tech card for the matchup is in the very top left of his prize cards. And, yep, Marc just nodding along.
Yeah, no. To be fair, Marc, when he wants to, he can have a very good poker face, so he might not want to give away the fact that you know his 1 best attacker against the matchup is prized.
We are going to see him. He's going to go for the same approach he took in game 1, the one that he was able to win in the end. He's going to discard 2 Lampants and also get himself a Getsis, trying to steal the game early.
Nope.
Just going to be a 2-card swing, and Fabien fortunately already has a Juniper in his hand. He has started with a Shaman EX though, which is a little bit awkward for him. He could potentially get a Sky Return knockout next turn if Marc doesn't find bench Pokemon, but fortunately for him, there is a Joltik at the very least. Let's see if Marc can do anything else with his 1 turn of item cards here.
Yeah, it looks like he has got an Ultra Ball, so that's really great for him. So you see, we'll be able to discard a couple of things, play a Shaman, really start to get the ball rolling. He does play, is it the full complement of 4 or is it 3?
It's 3 Shaman EX in his list.
Okay, but still a decent amount. He can do a good bit of digging with them, especially if he sees a couple more Ultra Balls, and this is exactly what he wants to do. Maybe try to get this, okay, that didn't work, okay, well, that's fine. Well, it's not, but it's the best I could do, so now just grab a Shaman, try and just get as much in the discard down as possible before Fabien inevitably does something to counter me.
Yeah, so currently 3 Night Marches in the discard pile with a few more draws from Shaman EX along the way. He does have, looks like double Puzzle of Time in his hand as well, so he could go for a Battle Compressor and also the Versa Seeker that he recovers as well. He's going to use that Battle Compressor straight away, going to put more Pokemon in the discard pile and maybe even a different supporter card that he can use with the Versa Seeker this turn proactively before a Quaking Punch inevitably comes down on the following turn, so at least that's something he has to prepare for.
Yeah, and that looks like that is exactly what he's doing. He's got the Sycamore down as one of his choices to discard off a Battle Compressor, so I would be very surprised if we didn't see that versus he could get played straight away to pick that Sycamore right back up as soon as this Battle Compressor gets resolved.
So 2 more Night Marches in the discard pile, leaving Marc with a 5-card Shaman EX draw, I think, from setup here, and he also has the Versa Seeker available to him for Sycamore at the end of his turn. It's just going to be a 4-card draw, but he finds himself more item cards. He gets himself a Trainer's Mail as well as a Battle Compressor. He even has 1 Puzzle of Time in his hand, so he could even Compressor for the 2nd, or the 4th puzzle, I should say, and get both double puzzles on the first turn, but instead he goes for a much more conservative approach. We're going to see the attachment of double Colourless Energy to the Shaman EX, lightning pace by Fabien. He's going to find himself 2 Seismitoad EXs off the Professor Juniper, and he's also going to Fighting Fury Belt, one of those Pokemon. He also has a Ultra Ball. He doesn't choose to use it, just promotes the Seismitoad with the Fighting Fury Belt, and takes the first prize of the game with a Sky Return here.
Yeah, I feel like Marc had a hunch that Fabien would play in a way where he wouldn't be able to get Quaking Punch this turn because he started with the Shaman and all that, so he actually has even had the Compute Search in his hand as well as the Trainer's Mail, so I think Marc just banking on, right, it's actually quite likely that I'll have a second turn of items, so I'm not going to play all this in an efficient way because he would have to play it inefficiently if he'd played it the last turn. Now instead he can respond in a way which he could even if he, depending on what he sees, he could actually just take out this Toad.
Yeah, and with the knowledge of the Getsis, he knew what Fabien's hand was, so he could make that assessment that turn and just allow himself that extra turn of items, assuming that he was more than likely going to be able to have them. We are going to see the Wonder Tag at this point. Marc eyeing up Pokemon Ranger. That is, of course, another card that he can use to maybe swing this matchup at some points, allowing himself to remove the effects of attacks, which is, of course, Seismitoad's big upside is the effect of Quaking Punch, removing the opponent the use of item cards. So that's something that he's going to want to keep around in deck. Maybe he searches it out now, but instead he's going to grab himself Teammates, going to allow him to get any 2 cards from his deck this turn.
Yeah, of course, he can play it this time. The Joltik was KO'd from a Sky Return, so this is a permissible play.
Yes, well done to Marc. He's done a play that's allowed this game. Incredible. So we are going to see what else can he do this turn. Maybe looking for something like Field Blower to put himself in range is an option for him. Maybe double Colourless Energy if it's not already in his hand. Maybe some Battle Compressors if he still requires more Night Marcher damage. Maybe even putting the other Puzzle of Time in his hand, which is exactly what we see here. So he can recover some extra items, and it's going to be one of them as a Battle Compressor. He might even get another Night Marcher if he wants to put on his bench, but instead he's going to find himself a Versus Seeker to maybe pick up the Teammates once again. Maybe even picking up the Ranger if he chooses to Battle Compress that target away this time.
Yeah, I think at this point he's actually guaranteed the KO because, as we've already mentioned, he has the Computer Search ready in hand. So I'd be shocked if he didn't have all the pieces ready to just, if not to put enough marches in discard, then to just get enough to do it without the Fury Belt, get the Field Blower, and then just take the KO that way. So
we are going to see this. I think it's the 3rd Battle Compressor, but most of the time it's just been that one that's been recycled this whole game via the Puzzles of Time. And we are going to see just 3 Pumpkaboos hit the discard pile this turn. And Marc going to continue very strongly here. He has double Colourless Energy already in his hand. We're going to see Trainer's Mail opting to use this to maybe hit some pieces before using the Computer Search, and that's exactly what he does. Finds himself the Field Blower. That's a really big hit for him. That's what maybe he would have looked for with the Computer Search, so he saved himself a task there. And allows him to use the Computer Search for something else this turn and go even more crazy. Yeah, I think now what you probably do instead is just use that Computer Search to search for another Night March Pokemon, so he actually has something else to follow up attack with the next turn. So pretty much as perfect a turn as Marc could ask for. This is brilliant stuff from him. He is going to discard 2 supporter cards with his Computer Search, and probably, as you say, Nick, maybe looking to get another Pokemon to slap onto his bench to allow him a bit of safety after this Joltik. Only having 30 HP is likely to get Response KO'd. Here is a double Colourless Energy to the Joltik. He could also even go for something like Floatstone to put onto one of his other Pokemon to move into later on. Looks like he did find himself a Joltik though, so we are going to see him use the Versus Seeker to round out his turn here. Maybe put down the Joltik and simply announce Night March for the first 2 prizes on his side here. And it looks like his option is going to be for Teammates. So this actually puts Fabien in an interesting spot because he could actually play this turn in a way where Teammates can't be triggered. He could just try and go for Verbank Laser, just pass for the KO, and then he can't play Teammates. But then, of course, Marc gets items. So either way, it's not really great. Yeah, and it looks like Fabien has to keep up the Quaking Punch lock. That's got to be something he wants to go for here. So he's going to be looking himself for something like Fighting Fury Belt to maybe make the Seismitoad be able to tank a little bit more, depending on how many Night Marchers are in the discard pile. But here we go. This is the big deal here. Yeah. And Wonder Tag for Karen, and both players have to shuffle. Has he just shuffled his hand? No, his hand's over here. It was his Night Marchers. Yeah. Okay. Please, not again. I just don't trust him anymore. Okay, so Karen is one of the big cards that we have seen be used to try and counter these Night March archetypes. It forces both players to shuffle all of the Pokemon in their discard piles into their decks, and that is really awesome when, in combination with Quaking Punch, Marc can no longer use item cards to put these Night Marchers back into his discard pile. This is exactly the wombo combo that Fabien needs to win the game. Had this game been around before Karen, this is exactly how Marc would win. He'd have this really insane early turn. He can then just, even if he gets Quaking Punch, he could just use Teammates, get another double colours, Night March again. But with the Karen, now he does the Quaking Punch, and Marc is just in a really, really tricky spot. Yeah, so he evens up the prize race with that Quaking Punch, and we see Marc, he has the Teammates, but what can he really do now? His items have been shut off, and he doesn't have any Night Marchers in his discard pile this turn. He's going to go ahead and find himself a couple of double Colourless Energy, it looks like, so maybe he can start fighting this Seismitoad EX with Energy Drive this turn. Yeah. And even then, a Pokemon Ranger wouldn't even help that much. For sure, could get rid of the item lock, and then he can use his remaining items, but he's been through so many already. That's the other thing. It's like that combination of having so little resources to access, and what little resources you can access not being usable so it's just so much to deal with. And because of the pressure that Seismitoad EX's Quaking Punch puts on, you can't not go all in the matchup. You pretty much have to put yourself in this all-in situation and hope that your opponent can't hit the Karen on certain turns. So we are just going to see the energy drive for 80 damage here. Fabien was able to get Zerosic off his prize cards and simply announced Quaking Punch. No Ace of Rolo was a really big deal for him here, but he's still out of range from an energy drive right now.
Yeah, there's actually, I think, if anything, it makes sense to... I mean,
in this order.
Yeah, in this order, because he can just... Even if Marc has no DCE, there's another 180, goes up to 160, and then that's the perfect time to Ace of Rolo and heal it all off.
Yeah, and he is sat on a couple of Versus Seekers, so Fabien chilling in his position right now. He seems to be in a pretty good spot here. Marc does have a few options available to him. Looks like it's going to be just another energy drive this turn. He does commit the double colourless energy to the Tapu Lele GX. He also has a Professor Sycamore. There's one Night Marcher at the very least. That's the only real way he has remaining to get rid of Night March Pokemon at this point.
As Julian might say, it's something.
It's definitely not nothing, I tell you that much. So we are going to see Marc hopefully continue his turn. He gets himself an Oranguru here and just another energy drive for the 80 damage, and we see a Hypnotoxic Laser come down. That is also a Heads, which is potentially a big hit here. We're going to see the Versus Seeker. He's going to go ahead and opt to use the Zerosic once again, and Quaking Punch, and again it's a big sleep flips, as is always the case with these Hypnotoxic Lasers. Fabien got the Heads, and so did Marc.
Oh, so did Marc. I feel like the reason why... one or two things have happened. Either Fabien has not been able to see his Ace of Rolo yet, or maybe he just feels like there's enough double colours discards that Zerosic is the better option to go for anyway.
Yeah.
Plus, he had the Sleep Flip to potentially fall back on, even if that did end up not working out.
Okay, so Marc has himself Pokemon Ranger. He's removed the effect of Quaking Punch, so this turn he's allowed to use some items on his side of the field to maybe stabilise this board state, hopefully get himself a knockout on this heavily damaged Seismitoad. Maybe even something like a Sky Return is something he wants to do, because he does have to protect the amount of double colourless energies he has remaining to him. We're going to see an Ultra Ball from him. He's going to get rid of a couple of Pokemon here. A couple of cards, looking for most likely a Shaman EX. He's going to get rid of a Choice Band as well as a Professor Sycamore here. Obviously, he's already used his supporter this turn, so he's going to look through his deck. There's also Special Charge in the prize cards and one double colourless energy, so I don't know if he can actually do anything anymore. I think he's out of energy, unless there's one more remaining in his hand. I think he's completely out of options.
Oh, dear. Yeah, that's it.
There you go.
Realise that
he
concedes.
has no means of attacking for the rest of the game. Special Charge was something he couldn't look for with Shaman EX, and his double colourless energy also in the prize card. So that is all she wrote for Marc Lutz there.
Yeah, and Fabien, after a tumultuous series, takes game 3, takes the match, and will be advancing to the finals.
Well, that's not something we were thinking about when we sat down to commentate this game. We thought it was going to be somewhat of a whitewash in Fabien's favour. Marc was able to somehow pull out a victory in the first game with some cool Tauros plays, and he demonstrated why that is indeed in the deck. Unfortunately prized in game 3 alongside a double colourless energy and Special Charge. All of these amounted to finally being defeated in the third game there.
Yeah, just